I hope everyone enjoyed a wonderful evening in Philadelphia last night. What a great city. I am so excited about this morning's session. Today, as you know, is the 50th anniversary of the signing of the Older Americans Act. And to help us celebrate, we have 4 incredible leaders of the Aging Network with us this morning, each of whom's spirit of innovation has impacted the Older Americans Act, the Administration on Aging, and the work that each of you do. They have such an incredible legacy to share with us. And also, as we talk about innovation, we are also going to be making a special announcement about a new n4a innovative partnership. And in keeping with that tradition of innovation in aging, this morning we're also acknowledging the winners of the Aging Innovation and Achievement Awards and giving out checks to the top 3 programs. But first, before we get into the program, I'd like to thank our sponsor, WellCare Health Plans, for their generous support of this morning's general session. WellCare has partnered with the n4a annual conference for several years now. Support like theirs helps us create a great conference. WellCare Health Plans provides managed care services targeted to government-sponsored health care programs, focusing on Medicaid and Medicare. And WellCare offers a variety of health plans to approximately 3.5 million Americans nationwide. So I'd like for all of us to thank and acknowledge the support of WellCare. And now it's truly my pleasure to introduce really somebody who needs no introduction, but I'm going to do it anyway. Coming straight from the White House Conference on Aging yesterday, straight from there, and probably very, very tired, we are so pleased to have with us this morning the Administrator of the Administration for Community Living, the Assistant Secretary on Aging, Kathy Greenlee. We're so thrilled to have Kathy here, not only to give us updates, as she always does, but also to provide an outlook for the Aging Network, and to give us a sense of what the future of aging can be from her perspective. But we just don't have Kathy with us. We have all of the former Assistant Secretaries on Aging with us this morning. In acknowledging Kathy's leadership, Kathy is a dedicated champion for the Aging Network. She is somebody who has worked on our behalf tirelessly to be able to promote the Aging Network and to look for opportunities for the Aging Network in all frames of government. She's undoubtedly the chief advocate for older adults, people with disabilities, and caregivers in every community in this country. For over 6 years at AOA and since 2012 at ACL, Kathy's been instrumental in building the capacity of the National Aging and Disability Networks to better serve older adults, caregivers, and all people with disabilities. Her work is especially important, as we've heard throughout this conference, because of the demographic realities that you all are dealing with every day. Kathy's been instrumental in ensuring that the Aging Network and AAAs are poised to realize the opportunities and inherent in improving the integration and alignment between healthcare and community-based services. And we are thrilled to welcome Kathy back to the stage at n4a on this historic day to reflect on what we've accomplished in 50 years and share with us her latest thoughts on what the future holds. Kathy Greenlee.
Thank you, thank you. Good morning. Wow, that's loud. Well, it is so wonderful to be here with Fernando and Jeanette and Josefina. I can't begin to tell you. For the 4 of us to be in the same place, it's just extraordinary. And Fernando would like for me to point out to you that we're all still alive. So, we're all here. It's just cool. I'm going to try to behave and actually talk and not move straight to the panel, which is what will be tremendously fun, I think, for all of us. Sandy, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. We've had a long partnership with N4a. Congratulations on your 40th anniversary and this record turnout, I think, that you have here this morning. So there aren't very many times that I can quite truthfully say hello from the president. I think this is one of those days. I'm glad you all were able to call in yesterday to the White House conference. So it was a special day, and as we started to look for a date for the conference, and the White House began to suggest the 13th of July, n4a Super and I started to worry about telling Sandy right away. I mean, right away. It's like, how soon? We were quite sincere. It's like, this is a major conflict, and we have tremendous respect and support for N4a and cannot avoid this conflict. So I want to thank you for the disruption for you and your staff and your board. The most important thing to us of all was having the support of the president and having his presence. And so we all juggled, and I just want to thank you for live streaming yesterday, for being there for us. It was a special day. It was an honor to have him come in, have a chance to shake his hand, have him thank those of us who've been doing this work. And so I am sincere in extending those thanks to you, because you are the broader network, and many of us have spent our careers working in the field of aging. And yesterday was a special and, yes, exhausting day, but very important. And when I was talking to staff at HHS, I said, you know, I walked in the door worrying about this conference yesterday, because I knew if the president served a second term, we would sponsor a White House conference. And we have struggled for several years to figure out how best to support it. And I appreciate the opportunity to live stream it around the country, to be able to travel to the regional forums. I attended all the regional forums, a little tribal listening session, some special events, and more specifically focused, including on health and aging with the Surgeon General, that were held at the White House. And so it's been a very big effort for a long time. We hired n4a Super last August, who, as you know, is the executive director. n4a and I had never met before. I could not have been blessed with a better partner in this last year to work with n4a Super. She was just fabulous. She said she was teleworking from bed today. So it's just been wonderful to have this partnership with n4a. We spent a lot of time together. The other person I want to recognize is Edwin Walker. Edwin and I have spent some good quality time together. We could not have done this without doing it together, and hours we've spent together. We like each other. This is helpful. We spent a lot of time together and working up for this conference. And then I know that I have some wonderful AOA and ACL staff in the room. Will you wave? Hi. I haven't seen you all in so long. I feel like I disappeared, and here I'm back. And I look forward to doing some new things now as we move forward from the White House conference. So I hope you could tell several things from the conference yesterday. One is the sincerity with which the White House approached the project and their desire to work across all aspects of the federal government. We met lots of people we had never met before in the federal government who were interested in the field of aging, supporting older adults, a lot of support for caregivers, and I hope that was evident to you yesterday with the presence of so many cabinet officials and others who came to the event. And the White House has been also focused on sincerely wanting to do some things, and so they released a document yesterday morning that talks about the different commitments that we've made across the administration. And the follow along from the conference for all of us now is to make sure that those tasks are complete, that we really do anchor forward progress in the field of aging by doing some very concrete things. So we will be at that task and find ways to continue to just move the work forward. So more to come. And n4a will be around for a few more months, I think, and we will sort of wrap things up. But I hope that you understood by watching the conference that we have support and willingness in the White House, in the administration, and the White House had made a special effort to reach out to new business partners. So people showing up that we wouldn't have known ahead of time in terms of being key supporters in the field of aging. And everybody who was talking, from the president on down, was talking about their willingness to embrace health and dignity and independence. And I thought Bernie Nash He and the president were like the stars of the show yesterday morning. The guy who opened, who had been at the first White House Conference on Aging in 1961. So happy 50th anniversary to all of us. Medicare, Medicaid, the Older Americans Act. I have a longer list than that, not just Social Security, which is its 80th, but I think it's really important to recognize that the 25th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act is also this month. It's on July the 26th, and I have the wonderful opportunity to return to the White House next week on a party I didn't plan to help celebrate the anniversary of the ADA, which also has a significant impact for people of all age who have functional limitations. So the ADA is really about us all. Lots to celebrate as we move forward. A very crowded month, I think, in terms of celebrations. So I just want to thank you all as we kind of talk about where we are for your incredible contributions to this country over the last many decades. You are the ones that we call. You're the ones I call, because people call me. So the Secretary of Corrections in Kansas called me years ago and said, my in-laws need some help. Where should we send them? High-ranking, I won't name them because they're still around, but someone you know, working in administration at HHS, sent me an email recently. Edwin and I know. I know someone who's being financially abused. Where do we send them? Secretary Sibilia several years ago called me. I've got a friend who has a family member with Alzheimer's disease in Texas. My friend Brian Bond from the White House called me right after I arrived. He said, my mom's in Springfield. We're at other services in Wichita. She wants to move. I have the pleasure of getting the calls from all of these principals and all of these agencies, and I always tell them about you, that you are the resource, and you're the ones. We're always the ones when someone has a crisis or doesn't know that people reach out to, and I'm always so proud to be able to say we can help and find the place that we can send them so that we all can move forward and help. You are a gem of a resource to the nation, and I just want to thank you for what you've been doing for years and years and years. And know that I hope you could see yesterday kind of a grateful nation, really, as we move forward and address the needs of 65, 10,000 people a day turning 65. Did you see my panel in the afternoon when the guy got the number wrong? He said there were 10,000 people a month turning 65. We all jumped on that. No. It's much better, worse, however you want to look at it, but there's 10,000 people a day turning 65. Those are the people that we need to be talking about. So I want to thank you all. I want to talk about where I think we are right now and then end, as you are hoping, and talk about the future and tell you that much of what I'm framing right now is not new. I'm not coming for new conversations every year, but to give you a snapshot after 6 years in the job of where I think we are together. And are we counting? I've been here 7 times. This is my 7th time. And it always feels like my state of the state. I always come back. You'll only have me at most once more, so we'll make it count this last year. I want to go back to the first time I came then. Now, were we in St. Louis or Minneapolis? I don't remember the first year. Those were the first 2. But in 2009, we were in Minneapolis, and one of you asked me a question from the audience. Now, I have not remembered every question I've been asked, but I actually remember this one from that first event, where someone stood up and lamented, and I don't remember the exact nature of the question, but someone lamented about the fact that why aren't we recognized more for what we do in information and referral and case management? Does someone remember asking me that question? There was a person here who asked me about this. And my takeaway from that is important, and I think my takeaway and what we've been thinking about since then really frames the work that we've been doing. Because when the person asked, and it was sort of a pleading kind of question, it's like, why don't people recognize what we know? I&R and case management is about what we know, not the things. It's not about the services, it's not about the meals or the in-home supports. I&R case management is the knowledge base. And so to me, the question was, we're the experts. Why don't people recognize that and value that? And that has been a great need and a source of frustration, frankly, I think, because we are the nation's experts. So I would like to do my own version of that question and talk about where I think we are by framing it this way. Who will pay us for what we know? Because I think that is the question of the day. has been the question of the last several years. It's the question you all are struggling with. So who will pay us for what we know? And let's start with the who. Who are the payers? Well, there's the Older Americans Act. And I have different ways of describing the Older Americans Act over the years. It's always been, we've considered the center tent pole in our tent. I don't know if it's the center pole anymore. It certainly is still present. But the Older Americans Act is the steady, reliable stream of funding that we've always relied on. It is the backbone and the way in which we established ourselves and organized ourselves around the nation. And I don't know where it's headed any better than you do. It would be helpful to get it reauthorized. It was nice to hear people talk about reauthorization yesterday. We have been working closely over the last 6 months with members of both the House and the Senate to try to get the bill moving forward for reauthorization. Reauthorization will help, but it will not solve the problem that we need additional appropriations, that it really is struggling with a lack of funding. And there simply has not been an opportunity since I've been in my position to advance us with regard to funding. Getting new dollars out of Congress for discretionary programs is exceedingly difficult to do. It's a simple calculus. There's so much pressure and growth from the mandatory programs, whether the big entitlement programs or the defense programs, that the discretionary programs really have a hard time getting traction and really gaining growth. So I think we need to continue to work to protect the program. I think we have to continue to work to educate people, elected officials, and I would start with the county and go to Congress, about what the value of the law is and what the services are that we provide, because we've had so much turnover at every level. People don't know what it is. And it will be impossible to get it funded at a level we like if people don't even know what the program is. So we have to continue to work on funding the Older Americans Act. In terms of other payers, these are the ones you know. You could pass this quiz right now. Medicaid. Medicaid will continue to be a major payer for us. Those of you around the country have been in different positions over the last several decades with regard to your involvement with Medicaid waivers. Many states, including my home state, started working on the waivers in the 1980s. Others, the AAA network wasn't really designed into the Medicaid program, but I certainly think Medicaid case management is here to stay, and I'm hoping that we can continue our conversations and make them more robust with regard to Medicaid's availability to pay for transportation. Alex, will you bring me some water? I'm going to steal some water here. Oh, look, they've got more. So anybody else needs water? I've got lots up here. Just a second. I hope we can work more on transportation. Had a good conversation recently with Therese McMillan, the head of the Federal Transit Authority at the Department of Transportation, about how we can work together on the issue of providing transportation for older adults, people with disabilities, and Medicaid needs to be an increasing part of that conversation. Medicare is a payer, still limited, will always likely be limited, or at least what I see in the most immediate future, although we are having some successes with you. Some of you around the nation have been successful in partnering with health plans so that we can build Medicare for the work that we're doing, especially on diabetes self-management. Managed care is the big thing. Managed care is the issue. Managed care is the issue we've been working on with you. You have a special group working on managed care. They are a payer. They will continue to be a payer. This is not an experiment that will leave. Managed care and Medicaid are now hand in hand. Managed care has been in Medicaid before they met us, working with children and pregnant women in different states, and managed care and long-term services and support is simply newer. But this continues to be an opportunity for payment. Hospitals will pay us. Hospitals are hard partners. Hospitals are potential opportunities for payers. It's challenging because it's just like talking to people in a foreign language, and we're not very interoperable with regard to any of our IT systems. Health insurers will pay us directly. I don't know, is June here from Partners in Care has been contracting directly with Blue Shield in California. The VA, through the Home and Community-Based Services Program, will continue to expand. I think we'll continue to see focus on accountable care organizations, so doctor-provided systems, doctor-organized systems that also are opportunities for us to reach out. And we should never forget the private consumers, that the people that we serve directly, the older adults, walk in the door with a need that we can serve by selling them what we know or what we can provide, not with Older Americans Act dollars. You can't charge for those things. But if you have a meal provider who can provide a meal and charge for it, you're contracting with, they can do it separately. So there are things that we can provide to a nation that's aging that will pay us directly. What will they pay for? So the end of the question, who will pay us for what we know? What will they pay for? What will they purchase? What do we actually know? This we're proving. This is the experiment most live right now. Roseanne, this is what you're learning. This is kind of how do we figure it out? This is the work of the Business Acumen, a group that we have convened now for the second round through ACL with the support of the SCAN Foundation and the Hartford Foundation. It's wonderful to have foundation support, but as we work with you, and you are leading the nation to sort this out, how do we figure out what payers will purchase from us, both in terms of the knowledge and the things? And I think of those differently, but they go together, what we know and what we can deliver. I believe assessment is the jewel that we haven't shined or polished enough. That assessment is the thing. When I talk about everybody calling me, do you have a person in Texas who knows about Alzheimer's, or the Secretary of Correction? It's like, we can send someone to a person's home and do an assessment. This people don't know and are so surprised and happy to learn. Still, you'll do that? I mean, the fact that we go to someone's home and assess what they need is still extraordinary. And we're so used to it because we've done it for so long that we have to realize that much of America doesn't know that this is even possible. And they struggle on an individual or family basis with trying to figure out, what do I need? What does my partner need? What do my parents need? We can come in and simply do an assessment in the home. And this is an extraordinarily valuable thing that we can do. And we can then partner with a hospital or health plan and say, we'll go do it. We'll go meet your people. We'll go see them in their homes. Care transitions? Well, now, what about an up and down project? The care transitions, let's just admit, care transition has been, well, here's where we started. We've always gotten the 5 o'clock phone call on Friday from a hospital. So we're thinking, we can do this. We've always been doing transitions from the hospital. And then it got a little bit harder because really what payers want is an evidence base. Here are some evidence-based protocols, implement those. And so the next challenge is, well, how do we figure out what that's going to cost us? And then we have to go work with new partners and hospital systems who have never learned that they had computers years before we did. And we're still someplace working with tablets and paper. And that there really isn't an infrastructure. There's never been a national infrastructure built for technology in community-based programs. So those of you I applaud who moved forward with the care transitions projects, the demonstrations with CMS, because we know from walking in the door and working our way over the bumps and bruises of that project that the lack of technology infrastructure and access to electronic health records is the thing. That we have to continue to work with leaders. I continue to talk about that with our technology leaders at HHS. The woman Karen DeSalvo, who's been the head of the Office of the National Coordinator of Health IT, is currently nominated to be the Assistant Secretary for Health, gets this. She's one of our biggest allies, and she understands how much we need to invest in technology in community-based organizations so that we can interact with care transitions and hospitals and do this successfully. We can sell, or they will buy, care coordination and navigation, meals, and in-home supports. And this is like blinking. So what we have to avoid in this, and I should just stop it and have it in my notes, but it's blinking on my sheet of paper. The goal is not to have all the health plans take our free stuff. It's not to take all of our free stuff. We don't have enough free stuff. We don't. I mean, the Older Americans Act is not robust enough to be the answer to what the healthcare system needs when they finally see we're here. So we have to find a way to make a business model that works. And we have to find payers who will pay for meals and not just assume that if someone is signed up on managed care or someone's in a duals plan, they can have all of the stuff someone will pay for than our free stuff. Because I have pointed out that they're not free. Someone's paying. It's us as taxpayers, and there's not enough to go around. And we have to continue to hold the line, what it means, what the priorities are, the targeting under the Older Americans Act, and really resist and kick and scream if that's what your strategy needs to be, so that we don't end up being just the resource for free as a partner with plans that should be paying us for this work. And I understand how much the world is changing and how in some ways it's still weird to come talk to you about selling things and buying things. I understand. This is not how we would rather it be. But you can't just give the free stuff to the health plans. We have to find a way to protect the core and the value of the Older Americans Act. Medication reconciliation, I continue to think, is something that we can help provide the nation in a better way. When Don Berwick was the head of CMS, he and I talked about medication reconciliation. We talked about the relationship between medication and falls. I think that this is fertile ground we haven't done enough work in, that we can continue to work on medications, because everyone has sort of an intrinsic knowledge of the polypharmacy issue that older people have. People kind of know that. The fact that we can help sort it out is tremendously valuable. And then evidence-based programs. And my hat's off to the three people here. I mean, we started working on evidence-based programs at AOA well before I arrived. And I really want to give credit to Fernando and Josefina and Jeanette, who saw the vision that one of the, as wonderful as we are, one of the problems that we've had as a network is that we've been focused more on outputs than outcomes, and that we have to move our programs to having an evidence base. It's not hard, I mean, it's not easy, it can be hard, but that work started before me, and it gave us a toolkit of things to use to start trying to improve healthcare outcomes for people in a way that we could prove. And I didn't do it, they did it. So I just want to give a recognition. I'd like to clap for you for your vision for doing that. They did it. Okay, so I've covered two of my three issues. You remember the question? Who will pay us for what we know? So I talked about the payers. I talked about what we know. Now let's talk about the hard part, the getting paid part. So this is really hard because it's a combination still of grants and contracts, which is a world I live in a lot. The Older Americans Act is a grant program where we give money to the states. They give money to you and have the opportunity to give money and assistance to people who need it. It's a grant-funded program. It's an entirely different creature than a contract. And I was trying to remember or think about where we still have other grant-funded programs. You all will know this, I'll guess. If any of you get United Way funds, those may be grant-funded programs. I don't know if you get county mill levies, those still may be monies that you just get that you don't have to contract for. Some states still have general revenue dollars that they will send to us without contract or negotiation. A lot of those took a hit during the recession where states really pulled away from their support. I believe the Federal Social Services Block Grant is a grant-based program. But you all should keep an eye in the states on your SSBG program. It's under tremendous risk. In Congress, it's on shaky ground. SSBG is the only source of federal funding for adult protective services, and it's not funded evenly in each state. It goes to a state decides how to spend their block grant in their state. And the concern that some members of Congress have right now, which we are trying to defend or protect, is that some members of Congress have concerns about the decisions states are making and the outcomes that come from those decisions. And what we're trying to do at the federal level, along with a coalition of individuals who support SSBG, is hold the group together. You should look in your state about how much SSBG pays for meals and how much they pay for in-home supports. They provide tremendous support, you all do through your state, for people with disabilities and older adults. And SSBG, you should not think of it as stable because it comes from a federal source that has had a lot of conversation in the last 6 months. Those are the ones that I could think of that are still grant-based. The big opportunity for increased growth, the things that people will pay for and the way they will pay comes from these other business relationships, from the managed care organizations, from Medicaid, from health plans. These are the places where there's growth. And that work is hard and has required us to learn new things, hire different kinds of people, and do things we never thought we needed to do when we were just working in the Older Americans Act space. And it's not all pleasant. I mean, I'm a lawyer. You've all had to meet more lawyers. They're not all as nice. You've had to learn to negotiate contracts and figure out how to read these long documents. You had to figure out how to price what we do and come up with a pricing model. Understand both fee-for-service and capitation. When you all first started, I snuck into the back of a workshop here. I tried to come in behind Percy because he's taller than me. Percy, remember that? And you found me, I was in the back row. And it was on this conversation. It was about fee-for-service and capitation, which mostly made me completely nervous. Because it's like, okay, don't do capitation, we haven't figured out fee-for-service yet. That we have to figure out how to even price what we do before we can bundle it and aggregate it. So these are conversations that no one thought we would be having years ago. And actually not conversations we were having when I came to Washington. How we continue to show the value proposition in this exchange, how we continue to focus on results. There are quotas that we have to meet when we sign a contract. That's new. Deliverables, how many? Counting. Performance that we have to measure. Quality that we have to deliver, and I think quality is the sweet spot. I think we have to continue to work, and we are, on demonstrating the quality in what we do, because I think it's the thing that will save us from all of these market forces that are happening now, is that we're simply excellent. And we have to continue to find a way to prove it. We have to show cost savings, because this is a financial arrangement. I want to acknowledge that you all, some of you all, have become very good at doing this. And it has been extraordinary to support you and partner with you and watch you all make this transition. And everyone here gets it. You keep hearing us talking about it over and over and over. And so you're on some sort of bell curve where there's some that are further ahead than others, but really most of you are out there somewhere in the middle saying, okay, we continue to hear what you're telling us, how, and what kind of support do we have? Not every state wants to go in this direction. You'll have to have state support. If you're part of a county government, how do you talk to the county? And I have been amazed by the ability that you have demonstrated to step up to this challenge. I do believe it's the future. And Sandy, I just want to thank you. I mean, you have been on this with your members, never behind, never a step behind, always trying to figure it out. I didn't look at your conference brochure because I was busy yesterday. But I know you've got workshops on this, that I'm talking to you about what you know. And we had a meeting recently with KPMG, the Big 8 accounting firm. They came to town. I have a colleague who used to be the Assistant Secretary for Children and Families, and he left. He works with KPMG, and they're starting to do consulting in community. Hey, I said, come meet us. And they came to town, and we had a conversation with KPMG. They've got fancy big documents. And we told them about our business acumen work. And they were so blown away, not just with what we were doing, but with how many years ago we figured out that this was the conversation. We are several years ahead of the rest of the nation in understanding we're the value we need to build. And it was a wonderful conversation to have these, fancy guys with lots of money in suits come and really be impressed with what we're doing. So I want to go back and talk about my question. Who will pay us for what we know? And I think I've framed, not new stuff, but where we are. But I want to change the question. Who will pay only us for what we know? That is the harder question. And I do wonder, back to the question from the audience many years ago, if that was really the purpose. Because what we hope is the answer is not the answer. And we wish that all of these entities that I talked about would love just us and would pay just us. And it's not true. There are very few payers in this list who will pay just us. The Older Americans Act will always be the anchor. The Older Americans Act is your structure, your safe harbor. It is where we're anchored in law together. It will pay only us. I'm not sure who else on this list will pay only us. And this, I think, makes us sad and a little discouraged. Like, it's not really just about paying only us. And to me, this is the epitome of really a good news, bad news dichotomy. Because at the time we have so much value, 40 and 50 years of investment in value, at the time when there are business opportunities and people who will talk to us about what we do and value us for it, there are more people in the space. And so what is happening in the future has started as we talk about where we're going. And I actually, first saw this along with you all several years ago. I had a long conversation with Secretary Sebelius about it, about 4 years ago. I said, you know, we've always thought of community-based organizations as nonprofits. We have a national network of nonprofit organizations. And they're everything from the CBOs that we talk about to the whole foundation of charitable work that we do around this country is all nonprofit. Yet we've watched our partners over in the healthcare system really come up with a different model. And we are familiar with for-profit and nonprofit hospitals, for-profit and nonprofit nursing homes. Have we ever really thought about for-profit and nonprofit community-based organizations? This is the cusp we're standing on right now. And we wish that we could sort of claim it all, have everybody pay only us. It's not only not going to happen, we don't have the capacity in the nation to service the demand. Because once the healthcare system figures out we've been this silent, excellent partner for decades, they simply will want us so much they will overwhelm the capacity. So we have to be there first to get everything that we can and protect who we are. But we will now start to see, some of you are starting to see, for-profits come into this work. And it's really kind of phenomenal to think about. If you do your strategic plan, I have a kind of funky exercise for you. And I think it would be interesting for you to do a strategic plan for your organization and take the Older Americans Act in the beginning out of the conversation. So don't gasp, I'll tell you why. Try to plan it without it. Can you do a strategic plan without the Older Americans Act? Where are you without it? And then once you do that, reinsert it. Because once you see what you're doing without it, you can better evaluate what it's doing for you, where it can best strengthen and support your strategic plan. Because it's still there. It will still be there. We will still need it. But our plans and our opportunities are so large that sometimes I think we can't get clouded by it. And I think we can see it better for what it does if it's complemented by everything else. So this is what I think is coming. And then I've written here what I think is the real fear. It's like, do you think we should just run from the room and scream now? I don't read all my speeches, I wrote that down. No. We are the best value in the nation. We are the best people to do this work. Absolutely. We've done it through n4a for 40 years. We have the most expertise, the most compassion, the most vision, the most to offer. And as we plan for the next 40 or 50 years, we will remain special and important to the nation. And our mission, I think, is critical. It's unsurpassed. You can do this work and still be true to yourself and your core and your mission. And for the Older Americans Act, we will always be exclusive. It's ours. It's fundamental. It'll be part of our plan. We need to really focus on what it does for us. But for everyone else, we will be preferred. We will be the platinum card of aging services. Not exclusive, but preferred. In fact, when I was thinking about this, I liked that phrase, the platinum card of aging services. And then I realized, well, it's the 50th. So maybe we should move forward for the next 50 years and see ourselves as golden, because we really are the value that the nation needs, and we can do it. Thank you all very much.
Kathy, every time you come to the N4A conference, you not only give us a vision for the future, but you inspire us to achieve that future. So thank you so very much.